We are going to start with Dr. Sudharman Jayaweera. He is our Program Director for Emerging Technologies, Innovation and Technology Ecosystems, ITE, and Directorate for Technology, Innovation and Partnerships, known as TIP, from the National Science Foundation, or NSF. With that, he's currently a Program Director in the Emerging Technologies section of the Division of Innovation Technology and Ecosystems in the Directorate of Technology, Innovation and Partnerships, or TIP, of the National Science Foundation. His primary responsibility for the advanced telecommunications and immersive technologies. Dr. Jayaweera, what we like to call SJ, is also a tenured professor in electrical and computer engineering at the University of New Mexico and the founder and president of Bluecom Systems and Consulting, an R&D startup company in Albuquerque, New Mexico. His research expertise is in wireless, cognitive, cooperative communications, MILCOM, MILSATCOM, machine learning, artificial intelligence, dynamic spectrum sharing and coexistence, spectrum and space, situational awareness, statistical signal processing, and information theory. Dr. Jayaweera completed high school education in Sri Lanka at Rahula College, Matara, and was a science journalist at the Associated Newspaper Ceylon Limited, Lake House in Colombo, Sri Lanka. He received the BE degree in electrical and electronic engineering, EEE, with first-class honors from the University of Melbourne, Australia, and obtained his MA and PhD degrees in electrical engineering from Princeton University. A senior member of the IEEE, he is also a fellow of the European Alliance for Innovation. During 2009 to 2011, he was a faculty fellow at the Kirtland Air Force Research Laboratory, Space Vehicles Directorate in New Mexico, and was a National Academy of Sciences National Research Council senior fellow at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California in 2013. So with that, if we can all have a warm welcome for SJ.
I have this one.
You're good, you need both.
Okay, all right. Jesus, that was long. I don't know where you got that one, but do we have time to talk? Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for that long introduction, and I'm very glad to be here. Good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here and truly honored that you guys invited me. This is great. Okay, so let's see whether I can get this one going. Okay, all right, so works. No, okay, all right, okay, so good. Okay, so so what I'm going to talk about is actually a little bit how we see current wireless networking telecom industry may evolve in the coming years, and how US can leverage its existing strengths to position ourselves in global driving seat again. So that's kind of the idea. So I'm going to talk about from open source, Open RAN, to next-G, open and integrated networks. Okay, so first of all, the disclaimer that this is all my views, so not NSF official positions. Okay, all right. So the most of you have heard about National Science Foundation, obviously, and but when you talk about National Science Foundation, most of the time what you think is that National Science Foundation funds basic research, and that is true. However, as you can see, the mission of National Science Foundation includes three basic pillars. One of them is promote the progress of science. So in other words, supporting basic research. But there are two other goals, aspects to the mission of National Science Foundation. And those are the advancing the national health, prosperity, and welfare, and the national security. And normally, most of the National Science Foundation programs are geared towards that first ideal, the basic, supporting the basic research, and you don't see much the other two as prominent in National Science Foundation programs. However, the first thing I want to point out is that has changed with the establishment of specifically the Directorate of Technology, Innovation and Partnerships, or the TIP. The TIP Directorate was established as part of the Chips and Science Act of 2022, the Congress in the Chips and Science Act specifically called out National Science Foundation to establish a new directorate called the Technology Innovation and Partnerships, focusing on technology translation and workforce development. And that gave the National Science Foundation a new avenue to actually focus on those two other mission goals of the National Science Foundation that somewhat have fallen wayside. And there's few things that I want to emphasize about TIP Directorate. The most important thing is, unlike most of the National Science Foundation traditional programs that funds only academic institutions or nonprofits or the state and local governments, that's why I asked the earlier questions, the TIP Directorate most of the time funds for-profit private industry. In other words, most of the time TIP programs actually actively try to get the industry participation in many of its programs. And that's because if we want to achieve the technology translation, if we want to make sure that the technologies that comes out of basic research that National Science Foundation funds actually becomes something that impacts the society, whether it is economic or social, whatever, then we need to get the private industry involved. And because of that, if you look at actually most of the programs that have that TIP has already funded, you will notice there's a lot of industry participation. And the Chips and Science Act specifically asks the not just NSF but the federal agencies to develop programs to support the or the address societal and national geostrategic challenges, and it identified 5 of those. I'm not going to read through them, and it includes the usual suspects. But it also called out that those challenges to be addressed within the context of 10 key technology areas. And those 10 key technology areas were supposed to be the critical emerging technologies that the majority of community thought as important areas where there is global competition, and U.S. need to make sure that U.S. stays ahead and U.S. position itself in global leadership position. And of course, one of them is advanced communications and immersive technologies, number 6. And that's the area that actually I'm responsible for in TIP Directorate in the IT division. Within that division, we have a section called Emerging Technologies. And the Emerging Technologies section, the program directors are specifically looking at each of these 10 key technology areas and developing programs to make sure that we do something to make some impact. That's the goal. Okay, so so as you can guess, the National Science Foundation has several directorates, and each one of those actually is focused in one area. For example, engineering is focused in engineering, and biological sciences focused in biology and those other areas, and science is focused in computer and information science as well as computer engineering, and the MPS, mathematics and physical sciences. But TIP cuts across everything. Because we focus on those 10 key technology areas, what it means is that the TIP has programs that pretty much cuts across all those technology areas. So we work with other directorates in developing programs that actually take their basic research programs further. Most of the time, TIP programs, when we try to explain, we explained we are looking at high TRL and the translation-ready or adaptation-ready technologies. And what that means is that sometimes we can take the programs that are already funded under existing programs, and we can build on them to actually translate whatever the outcomes into something useful. And although the Congress asked to focus on all those 10 key technology areas and hundreds of billions of dollars in the Chips and Science Act, there's always a limit in what is the actual funding available. So you have to prioritize what are you going to do in the immediate future. So this year, starting last year, the TIP developed a roadmap to plan ahead and develop programs in these 10 key technology areas. So we decided that in the next 3 years, in the short term, we're going to focus on 4 specific technology areas. And those areas are the AI/ML, advanced telecommunications and immersive technology and biotechnology, and the cybersecurity, data storage, and computing. So CCI is definitely in a good position. So both advanced communications as well as cybersecurity is in the near-term roadmap for TIP directorate. And that's good for this community as well. So, yes?
I have a question about the AI. Is there any consideration to ethical AI, because AI could be used as bad as evil as well? What's in the good part of it? So is ethical artificial intelligence a part of this one?
Yes. Well, to develop the good ones, you need to know how the bad ones work, right? So you have to know both sides. So yeah, it's pretty general. Yeah, I know it's actually I forget the name, but there is actually current couple of TIP solicitations that address ethical AI, that type of stuff. Yeah. Okay. So let me take a little bit now a different angle. And that is to talk about the state of wireless telecom and where we stand in terms of the global competition. And as everyone knows here, in 5G, the notion is that US has fallen behind when it comes to the global competition. And that is true if you look at the global telecom market, 5G specifically. Obviously, there is no major US vendor, and the 30% or more, the market is dominated by Huawei, and most of the time, mostly, we are working with a couple of vendors from friendly countries to make sure that we actually have the 5G infrastructure. So, and how did that come to happen? And there's many reasons, and simply put, the US fell asleep behind the wheel. We fund a lot of good basic research, but we did not translate them, and we did not act on them. And those funded, taxpayer-funded research, most of the time were benefiting the competitors rather than US. And actually, just yesterday, I think there was a congressional report that came exactly about that the lot of US actually defense agency funded research was benefiting specifically Chinese entities, and Georgia Tech got in trouble, and they had to cancel the program, and there was another university, I forget, They're also considering UC Berkeley, considering canceling some of the collaborative programs. So, but there are other reasons as well, and that is the PRC specifically has taken the flag position due to government subsidies as well as various foreign policy tools. Now, going forward, the goal of the CHIPS and Science Act is to make sure that U.S. stays competitive, and U.S. in telecom, specifically 5G, next generation wireless, and 6G, U.S. actually try to catch up to that global competition. And the risk is that if we do not deploy advanced 5G networks and the advanced 5G capabilities, there is a good chance that many services and industries, verticals that actually depend on those advanced 5G networks will also not happen here. And so there is an acute need for us to make sure that not only we translate our US developed technologies so that they can become global standards and adapted in 6G and next generation wireless, but we also have to make sure that we deploy these networks at scale in US. So this is actually some of those numbers that I quoted earlier. And this goes to what we're doing right now to catch up. And as all of you already knows, the Open RAN is one of the big US government-backed initiatives to catch up to that global competition. And the simple logic is that by using the Open RAN, the open interfaces and the modular architecture, maybe we can allow new players to get into the markets. So that way we can try to break the dominance that the PRC and specifically Huawei and CTE has on global telecom MNOs. Now, however, the projections are that even in about 4 to 5 years, that Open RAN market share might be about 20 to 30% of the total RAN market. Now, another aspect of the Open RAN that everyone of you aware of is that although that initial idea of Open RAN was for the multi-vendor Open RAN, there is so-called single vendor Open RAN. Now, with the single vendor Open RAN, you might not get that multi-vendor opportunity for the new players. And even if half of that market, Open RAN market, which is about 30% of the total RAN market, is claimed by the incumbents as single vendor Open RAN, then I don't think that is going to be a game changer. Not by itself, unless we actually try to do something on top of that. And there comes then the focus of this workshop, open source, Open RAN, right? There are various reasons why open source can be good. And I don't have to go through the list because you guys know better than me, because you guys are the ones who work in open source, right? So to have the open source advantage specifically in wireless networking, what we need is that we need to get more people involved in open source. If we don't have that, even if we fund the open source, if there are no developers, then who is going to take advantage of that open source? And if we don't have the technology translators, entrepreneurs, who try to build on open source software, taking advantage of that, then we're not going to have much of good outcome from that either. So the open source can be good in specifically for US if we can establish that early advantage. To achieve that, we need to again do more than what we are doing right now. And so there are various things that we can do to take advantage of open source. But we also have to realize that if we don't do them, then whatever we invest in open source can also benefit our competitors. And that is something that we have to be mindful. So if we want to make sure that the investments we do in open source, we can take advantage of that, then we need to build on that open source ecosystems. So there are some ideas, but in the interest of time, I'm going to skip to this. Now, NSF specifically support various open source initiatives, not just in open source software, but pretty much what we call open source ecosystems that actually looks at various parts of the telecom networks. It could be open source hardware, open data sets. But also, we need to go beyond that if we actually want to make sure that in the next generation wireless, we establish US as a leader in telecom markets, telecom industry. And for that, I think we have an opportunity to leverage the Open RAN as well as the open source, and also some of our traditional strengths in other technology areas. One of those areas is cloud computing. US is undoubtedly the leader when it comes to cloud computing. Software industry, again, US has, including open source, US has an advantage in general when it comes to the software industry. The space industry, that's another area that traditionally US is a leader, and we have well-established space. And of course, AI/ML. While the competition is catching up to US when it comes to these technologies, but still we have really good strengths in all these areas. So with that, we can look at how the next generation wireless network is going to look like. And we already see that in the 3GPP and other agencies' definition of what should be the capabilities, features in the next generation wireless networks. The next generation wireless networks is going to be open, integrated, and they're going to be multifunctional. They're going to be integrated in terms of space, air, ground, integrated networks. They're going to be multifunctional. The network is going to do sensing, communication, computing, everything. And also, they're going to be cloud native, AI native, and open native. What I call open native, meaning that they open standards, open interfaces, and possibly open spectrum, meaning that a lot of sharing native technologies, and potentially open source. And also, by looking at what happens with 5G, we can see the next generation wireless networks will be verticals driven, because how much broadband bandwidth you need on your cell phone more. It's going to be mostly for the industries, vertical industries, that the demand is going to come from. So they're going to be verticals driven. And the good thing is that in many of these areas, we have traditional strengths. As I pointed out, we have the cloud computing strengths, we have the software industry strength, we have the AI/ML strength, we have the space SATCOM strength. We can bring those players, we can bring those communities together to define and advance the next generation wireless networking technologies so that actually we can make sure there are new opportunities for the new players to break into the market. And towards that, I just gave an award for a PI from TIP Directorate to organize a workshop on open and integrated network testbeds for research and translation. And this workshop will, the goal will be essentially to develop a roadmap to tell NSF what we should be looking at doing in this domain of next generation integrated networks, both establishing test beds to facilitate the technology translation as well as the basic research, but also parallel funding programs, because if you have a test bed, there is no point if you don't have money for somebody to use it. And the goal is that the target is that we will have this workshop in January next year. So keep an eye for that. And another program that is interesting for this community is the Pathways to Enable Open Source Ecosystems, or the POST program. Now, POST program, as I said, is not specifically for telecom or open source software. It's actually open source ecosystems, meaning that it can be any area. It could be healthcare, it could be, you imagine, whatever. But of course, the wireless networking and the open source software does fall in this open source ecosystems definition. So this is, if you did not already know, I think you just passed the deadline, but there will be another round, so you should check it out. And so here is one example. Actually, when I looked at the funded projects under the POST program, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, this was the only one I could find. For some reason, I mean, there were tens of other projects that has been funded under this program, but for some reason, wireless networking community either did not apply or did not get funded. So I think I would encourage everyone to flood NSF with proposals, because I don't manage it. But anyway, so I think it's a good program, and I think it fits very well with the open source software ecosystem. So I think you can take advantage of that. This is an open source ecosystem for broadband prairie at Iowa State. I think most of you know PI, Professor Hongwei Sang. Now, just less than 2 weeks ago, this new solicitation was published. And this one actually built on, or you can consider as an offshoot of that POST program. So this is actually safety, security, and privacy of open source ecosystems, and it's perfect. And it is actually, there is an information webinar on October 10th. So if you have not already signed up, please sign up for that. So you can find out, what is in, what is out. But as you can see, it should again fit very well for this community's interests. And the preliminary proposals are due January 14th, and the full proposals are due April 22nd. Now, this is another program. So all these programs that I mentioned, they are from TIP Directorate. POST programs and the safety, the SafePOS, all those programs. So this is actually one of the programs that most of you have heard about, the NSF Convergence Accelerator Track G, and this is actually specifically on Open RAN, but it is about the security of Open RAN, co-funded by DoD, OSD-RNE, along with NSF. And there's 5 phase 2 awards, and I don't need to name them because most of you guys know who they are. And I think Tracy was here, one of the awardees. Okay, so this is actually the program that the first solicitation that I designed after joining TIP directorate. So for those of you who, I think most of you have seen this one, but for those of you who did not know, this one was actually specifically focusing on 5G, next G wireless technologies in the context of low latency verticals, meaning that they develop wireless technologies to solve the particular low latency performance demand required by a vertical industry. And it was designed as an ideas lab. We had an ideas lab, 3-day in-person ideas lab in July, and we invited 8 teams to submit full proposals, and those proposals were due yesterday. So today I'm going to check, well, how they look like. And I think because it was an ideas lab, more than 200 PIs apply for the ideas lab, and then we select like 35, 40 to come to the ideas lab workshop. And then from that, we invited 8 teams. So there is a very high likelihood of getting funded once you get to that stage. At least I would say 50% or more, hopefully. That depends on whether we can convince TIP leadership we should put more money, right? So okay, and here is another solicitation that TIP put out in coordination with SAI's IIS division. And we just held a webinar yesterday. Maybe some of you joined that webinar, but if it is not, you should look at the solicitation. The idea here is that if you have a test bed, some form of a test bed that you can upgrade, enhance, improve by adding AI capabilities. In other words, to facilitate the new research that somehow incorporate AI into whatever the technology that your test bed support. And if you are willing to open that test bed with those improved capabilities to the external community, then you can qualify for this program. So the goal here is actually support existing test beds to be improved, enhanced by allowing for testing and conducting R&D by incorporating AI techniques. And the areas that it supports, as you can see at the bottom of that slide, is wide-ranging. So it can be AI-ready schools, criminal justice, but of course, the last one is AI-ready wireless networking platforms. And that means that if you have, it does not have to be a large-scale test bed. It can be a small scale, it can be medium scale, so there is no requirement. So in other words, it does not have to be power platform. It can be something small scale, but you want to improve it, enhance its capabilities to do research with AI incorporation, and then you can apply for this. Okay, so another program that we are currently working on is the successor to RINGS program. And a lot of you might also have heard about the RINGS program that came from science and engineering. At that time, actually, if I'm correct, there was no TIP. I think my former colleague, Tyaga, who was at that time in science CNS, the NETS program, was instrumental in designing and developing the RINGS program. And now we are looking at what to do next year when current RINGS projects run out of money and time. And we are right now deciding a solicitation, and our hope is that we will try to get the new solicitation out within months. I don't want to spoil Hussein's surprise, so it is coming pretty soon. So currently we are looking at, and it's going to be actually most likely a much broader scale and much broader in terms of the participation of partners, and also TIP is looking at partnering so that we can actually enlarge the scope and scale of the program objectives. I think if you are a wireless networking researcher, technology developer, technology translator, I think the next immediate future looks good in terms of funding, because there are many programs that are under development in specifically in TIP. Because as I said, in the immediate 3-year roadmap, advanced telecom is one of the key areas, which means that there are many programs that were called out in the CHIPS and Science Act that TIP needs to develop by congressional requirements. And in many of those, the advanced telecom will feature prominently. Just like the regional innovation engines, which was 160 million, 10 years, these awards going to be large awards. For example, the Congress specifically calls out in the CHIPS and Science Act translation accelerators and testbeds. And those programs are currently under development. And also many of you might have seen the convergence accelerator is now regionalized. And so there are more opportunities for different regions to compete and also focus on specific areas. Each region can focus on one area. So this is actually, well, according to this announcement from White House, I think early this year, you should already have the translation accelerator solicitation, because it said that this summer NSF will release it, but well, it will come. It's still under development. Okay, so the last thing I want to mention is that we want to hear from you. What we should look at in terms of new programs and what areas to support and what technologies to develop and focus the programs in. We would like to hear from you guys, and it will help us to understand that where we can actually make an impact. Rather than operating in an open loop system, it's always good to get the feedback from you all about those. And also, as I mentioned, that workshop on open and integrated networks, if you have an idea about an important technology topic that you think can develop a roadmap plan for the NSF to act on in that area by organizing a workshop meeting like this, we can fund that. We can support facilitating that workshop. So you can submit a workshop proposal. So if you have any of those type of ideas, you can always reach out to me. My email address is over there, and it's very easy to remember. Well, no, it's probably not. Yeah, it's the old Linux system way of doing the email addresses, right? So, okay, all right. So that's it. Thank you, everyone. Very nice to be here. Any questions? If I can answer.